Good evening. I had intended that tonight's discussion would concern itself with an EMP pulse, the outcome and the actions to take. But the investigations and the research actually led me to a state where I'm now saying that taking the EMP pulse as an entity and as a cause for the video is now defunct, because basically there's not a great deal of difference in terms of the effect of the EMP pulse and what we've discussed earlier on with the nuclear attack and the cyber attack. The effect is the same. It's just a matter of it's a different tool. However, it's opened up a type of investigation where I now have a series of 10 areas where preparation is required for such and such an event. Okay? The 10 areas are water, food, shelter, hygiene, medicine, safety, heat, light and power, whether or not you're going to trade and barter because you need some sort of mechanism, communications, and then finally transport. This will be primarily about water tonight. There will be a further 9 videos, each of them about the other aspects. Some of them will be quite short, some of them will be long and convoluted. This one is liable to be convoluted because I'm going to be discussing the requirements of water and what to do in an urban, a suburban, and a rural scenario. Hypothetical situation number 1. You are in an urban environment. Inner city London, inner city Birmingham, one of the larger rabbit warren cities. I cite cities in the UK. It could be in America, it could be in Central Europe, it could be in Eastern Europe, could even be in the Far East. Hong Kong, the likes of that, I would say would be a nightmare. Seoul would be a nightmare in an EMP or a similar sort of attack in terms of being able to get water. Okay, so cycling back to the urban scenario. If you are in a block of flats where the power goes off and you cannot get drinking water, potable water to wash yourself, your clothes, or to flush the lavatory, all of a sudden you are in deep doo-doo. Life, that's Maslow's requirements, say that 3 days of water, 3 days without water brings you to a dangerous scenario. So you have 3 days to get everything together, or rather, if you don't have everything together in 3 days, you're in trouble. Taking that, you are in a scenario, in a situation where you're able to plan. In the urban environment, you have one of 2 options. 1, you shelter in place, or 2, you get the hell out. The primary problem with sheltering in place in the urban environment is storage space. Water is a bulky item. If you have 2 adults and 2 children in an apartment, 2 adults drink 2 litres of water each per day. The children drink 2 litres of fluid each per day. In terms of the adults, I would advocate 1 bottle of still water and 1 bottle of sparkling water. Sparkling water is slightly more refreshing, cleans the palate just a little bit better. The still water is easier to cook with. And even then, it's not just the cooking; it's the fluid, it's the coffee, it's the tea, and whatever, all the rest of that sort of stuff. So, children, you can get them. You can have a flavored water, fizzy pop, cola, orange juice, all of that sort of thing. The actual acquisition of fluid into the body and the absorption of fluid is actually not so much of a problem, because it's literally just a case of finding what each of the individuals within the apartment or the flat will use. I would take a 4-week period as the safe zone. If you go any less than 4 weeks, you're leaving yourself open to the possibility that the event, the effects of the event, last up to a month, and you are not prepared for it. You've done the half-assed job, and all that happens is you everything works well for the first fortnight, and then everything goes to hell in a handbasket. So work on the basis that you're preparing for a fortnight. So you have 2 litres of water per adult for 28 days, say, for 30 days, round it up. Make it easy for me to multiply. So you've got 4 litres of water for the 2 adults for 30 days, that's 120 litres. 120 litres of a similar fluid for the children, that's nearly 500 litres. And that's just the drinking water alone. So you have 500 litres, it's bulky enough. You know, if you think about it, 500 litres is going to take up the guts of a cupboard sized space, because you're storing this thing. This is not going to go magically hidden away somewhere. You have to actually have it available. And if you have it in a lockup where you go, I will be able to get out at 2 o'clock in the morning and go off and bring in 2 litres of water every day. No, you won't. Because somebody will keep an eye on you, they'll see where you're going, and then one day you'll go down and you'll have nothing, because they'll take everything that is in that lockup. They'll even take the lockup. They'll take the doors and locks and everything. So what you have to store is, you have to store it in-house, in place. You have to store it behind your front door, because you have to lock that front door and you have to stay inside. So that's the drinking water, 500 litres minimum, plus tins, plus whatever the hell else. Now, are you going to wash clothes? Are you going to wash yourself during the month? I guarantee you, if you have 2 adults and 2 kids in an apartment for a month, you are going to need to wash. So you have got to get water that can be used for non-drinking purposes. Having been in a scenario where there were water strikes here in Northern Ireland back whenever I was younger, we knew at the time what you did is you filled the bath, because you weren't sure when the water would come back on again. So you filled the bath and you filled every bucket that was around the place. And what happened was that the personal hygiene, there was a big, essentially a big metal bucket that was filled out of the bath, was put onto a gas stove and was heated. That then went into the sink, and people were able to wash at the sink. Wasn't wonderful hygiene, but at least you didn't stink. In terms of the washing clothes, the full basin or the full bath, depending on the circumstances, this doesn't last more than a handful of days, so you work the best way that you can. Um, the the water that was used to wash clothes was reclaimed from the washing machine and was stored so that it could be put into the cistern and would be used to flush the lavatories. So you were trying to sort of recycle as much as possible um, stuff that you were using to drink. You didn't. I'll be blunt. You didn't flush the toilet whenever you had a pedal. It was only whenever there was the number twos that you flushed. And the stuff out of the washing machine was in the cistern. So you flushed and it took everything away. But it was sort of cloudy because it was the stuff that was out of the washing machine. That's going to last a week. You then have to start thinking seriously about what you're going to do. How you're going to work that? I have no idea. Because I actually advocate, to be honest, that the only reason that you shelter in place is for the first week. If you're going to shelter in place, only do it for the first week, because after the first week it's going to get bedlam. It's going to get... People will be feral. People will be walking the streets with knives looking for what they can take from your dead body. I would advocate that everything that you do in your preparations for the hunker down in place is limited for your intent to leave. If you have the 4 week scenario there, or the 4 weeks resources there, just in case, but everything there is just in case. But your plan should be that you hide in place for no more than a week, and that you get out and then you have a bug out zone, you have a place to go. Because in the urban environment, it is a dead cert, and I do mean dead. Some people will go feral, they'll go wild, and it'll be back to essentially an outlaw scenario where the biggest bully with the biggest knife rules the area. By the end of the first week, if you've managed to survive, the focus will be off. People will start to they'll start to sort of say, right, okay, I'm now the boss of the area, and things will settle down, and essentially the hierarchy will have established itself. So you're in there, you're going, I have enough water for the fortnight, the week, or whatever, and I'm getting out. And you can get out then. Now, at that time, do you have a car? Do you have facilities? Do you have access to a car? Do you have whatever? I'm assuming at this point, because transport will be discussed at a later date, I'm assuming at this point that your plan has been successful and you do have a car that will work. At the end of the first week, the major roads will have started to be cleared, and the major arteries will be cleared. So the bottom line is that you can exit the city by the end of the first week. Your drinking water will go with you, because what you're going to be needing to do is you're going to need to have a place to go, and while you're going there you're still going to need to eat, drink and survive. Getting out of the town. I would advocate that if you have any sort of resource at all in terms of finances, and it should be fairly easy for finances for people in the greater London area, because London itself, you're actually quite well paid compared to the rest of the country. Um, if I lived in London and had that sort of disposable income, I would be inclined to, in a known area and within a wooded or similarly secluded place off the beaten track, I would be inclined to get somewhere between 1 and 5 acres, secluded, off the beaten track, well away from sort of normal passers-by. And I would be inclined, as I say, to get a large second-hand caravan or a wooden house or one of those holiday home type things, and get it shipped up and padded up there. What you're talking about is having shelter off somewhere. Again, shelter will be discussed elsewhere. But whenever you're getting out of town, this is where you're looking to go. You're looking to, the Americans have the term bug out. So you have a bug out scenario. Presumably you have a Jeep, a car, an older car or whatever, an older estate car, transit van, whatever. You put whatever you can into the back of that car. Kids, whatever dried food you have, blankets, bed, bedding, whatever, additional clothes, money. And you head on out. You land out at this place, and the first thing that happens is you have to start going, right, okay, this is now where we live, and this is where your additional water comes into play, because now you're out in the country and you don't have the immediate requirement to hide everything. So you have the water that you need to drink. In terms of getting rid of human waste, whenever you're establishing your bug out location, get yourself a chemical toilet, a porta potty or whatever. Get a second hand one, something like that. Stick it out down the bottom of a field, out in the corner, out and surround it with bushes and stuff like that, so that nobody knows what on earth it is or whatever. And just go. That's where your human waste is. So then all of a sudden, the only thing that you need to worry about is your sanitation, not sanitation, the hygiene. So your hygiene is now just washing clothes and washing yourself, or washing the kids. That's an awful lot easier, because what you can do is, at least in the short term, you can use wet wipes and sanitary wipes and stuff like this to at least take the dirt and the sweat of the day. The only thing then you have to worry about is how to worry about cleaning clothes. If you're anywhere near a river or a stream or whatever, use river water. You know, river water is fairly clean. It's cleaner than the stuff that you get in the town. So that's that. So, your water for drinking, your water for sanitation, your water for hygiene. So, water in the suburban environment, much easier than the urban. Again, the problem is about the drinking water. It's an awful lot easier in the suburban environment, because for the most part, in the suburbs, there's an awful lot more storage space, and therefore it's easier, in theory, to be able to hide it there can be an awful lot more sort of over a long period of accumulation of water, so that stuff can be taken. Most suburban homes have more storage space. There'll be storage underneath the stairs, or storage in the attic, or storage. Sometimes they have a basement, sometimes they have a spare bedroom, even if it's a hall, whatever, utility room. It's entirely up to you. And basically it's a case of you store where you have the space. Again, it's 2 litres per day per individual. In this case, you are talking more about the storage for the drinking. You still have the storage of hygiene and washing water, laundry water, and sanitation. Again, the sanitation water can be reclaimed from the washing machine, etc. So that's not so much an issue. It's a case of the big problem is the hygiene. As we discussed in the earlier snaps, temporary storage of water in the bath, shall we say, to permit laundry is feasible, but that only lasts a week at best, probably. So what you have to do is you have to sort of say, right, okay, what's the other way of being able to gather water that I can use? There is a possibility of having things like rain butts, rain tubs outside, which would nominally collect rainwater, but in an environment where you have an impending water shortage / strike, it's not unfeasible to say, right, okay, take the garden hose and fill up those 2 water butts. You know, why not? If you're talking about a 50-gallon drum, 2 50-gallon drums, 100 gallons, that's a fair amount of water to be able to use for sanitation, hygiene, and whatever the hell else. As you know, we're talking about the suburban environment. I'm talking realistically about a semi-detached or detached house with the possibility of a garden and or a garage and or similar amounts of storage space. Having the water butts outside, it's actually quite easy. In some suburban houses, they would still have access to potentially to local water sources. Not really guaranteed, but it's a possibility. I wouldn't really count on that. You're best not to put all your eggs in one basket on that one. Slightly better than the city. Also in terms of as we said, the feral guys wandering about looking to exploit the situation. There's less of a chance of that. I can't honestly make a definitive statement for in and around London and Birmingham and stuff like that, but for the most part, Northern Ireland, where we're filming here, there is a more of a neighbourhood support environment in a whole lot of the suburban areas. Even the periphery of the urban area itself, you know, the concept of neighbourly support is an awful lot stronger here in Northern Ireland than you would sort of assumed to be in England. Scotland, I believe, is exactly the same, and probably Wales. Don't know about England. Really don't know. That would be, you guys would have to sort it out yourselves. Um, Basically, that's it. There's not a great deal additional to say about the suburbs. Would you be as well bugging out of the suburbs? Not entirely sure. Um, you have what you still have to do is you have to say on a personal basis whether or not you, as an individual, say, I don't want to be here. I don't want my children to be here. I don't want myself and my wife to be here. I'm out of here. That is the call that you guys make. Again, in London, there is the possibility of being able to take off into the countryside. It's an awful lot easier because you're not having to worry about all of the heavy traffic. But again, you still have to worry about maps and stuff like that. You still have to be able to read a map and get the hell out into the country. When was the last time you actually read a map? You know, you can't rely on your GPS in your car because that could be fried. Would I have an environment out in the car, out in the country? Yes. I would, as a preference, have the likes of a holiday home in a small, off the main road place, 1 to 5 acres, surrounded by fast growing ferns, fast growing trees. There's a tree called a Castlewell in Gold. You put that in, and inside about 2 years, it's taller than the average house. Well, no, that's an exaggeration. You get it in at about 10 feet tall, and inside about 3, 4, 5 years, it smothers everything. Sorry, I beg your pardon. So it's the planning. How far do you plan down the road? Do you plan 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 5 weeks, 10 weeks, a year, 5 years, 10 years? It's up to you. You make that call. That's suburban. In terms of the urban, you're on a pig's back as far as this is concerned. From my point of view, in terms of water, if I had a house in the country now, what I would be inclined to do is establish how deep the water table is. I already have done it for here. The water table here is approximately 50 feet below the surface. And even then, it's because we're on a rise up out of Belfast. So the drilling down to hit the water table is not a big problem. It's not all that hard. It's not hard rock here. So you can take one of the local drilling operations and pay them to drill down to the water table, and then you go down to the water table and there are a couple of ways that you can do this. You can go down to just shy of the water table and use ground source heat pumps as an energy source, heating source, and then you drill another borehole down past that, down into the water table, and then you just use a pump to take the water up. And to be perfectly honest, what I would be inclined to do is have the same sort of windlass thing that you see in some of the old cowboy movies, where it's literally just the wind turns this all the time, and you just pump up into essentially a big overhead tank. It's easily done. One of the places where I grew up, there was a water tower in the place. We knew it as the water tower, and it was literally just this big reinforced tank, and it was maybe 20 foot across and about 20 foot tall, and it held whatever water was required for the farm. And it was excellent, because one of the things that I understand, or I remember being made, was there was the pump that was used was made out of an oil drum, and it was a rotary pump, vertical axis. And what they'd done is they'd actually taken the oil drum and cut it down the middle, and then offset it, so that essentially you had two halves of an oil pump, or of an oil drum, circling around a vertical axis. And this ended up, this pumped all of the water from down below right up into this tank. And then this tank had more than enough head pressure to be able to pump water all over the farm. And it was just one of those things. And it lasted, because it was essentially a wind powered exercise. It was totally free, and the head of power, the height of head for the pressure for the water was amazing. I remember even now turning on the tap, and the pressure from the water in the thing, there was maybe about 50 foot of pressure, and 50 foot of pressure will give you a fair shower. Like, it won't take the skin off your hide, it won't take the skin off your back whenever you're standing in the shower, but you'll be clean. So that's my thoughts on water. Please let me know whether or not you think I'm right, wrong, crazy or sane. Subscribe, mark up or down, and get back to me. Please come back for the other 9 items. You'll find them all very interesting. Each of them will have their own aspects. They might look back to the water. They might have some sort of interconnectability between all of the 9 options. But they're all intent on your safety. This is not for any other reason than me trying to give you my view on what could happen, and my view on what you could do to protect yourselves and your family. Take it as being my best effort to try and help you out. Please come back. There'll be others in the next few days which will supplement this. I thank you, and good night.